right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Tonio Burton. I was looking at his latest physique update today at now under 2.5 weeks out, or right at 2.5 weeks out from the 2025 Olympia. And I think when we have this conversation about potential top 10, top 6 guys, I feel like maybe Tonio has gotten left out of the conversation a little bit, because we saw him compete much earlier in the season, winning the Legion Sports Fest back in May, and then also taking a top 3 placing at the Dubai Pro, probably the most competitive Dubai Pro that we've seen to date, back in June. And I think also the fact that we didn't see him on the Olympia stage last year in 2024, but the reason for that was because he was taking some time off to put on size. So what we saw from him was he did the 2023 Mr. Olympia, and he was 8th. And then in 2024, he won the Cali Pro. He was 2nd at the Arnold Brazil. He was 3rd at the New York Pro, all of these being April and May. And then from that point to May of this year, so like an entire year, he focused on putting on size and making improvements to his physique. And that's exactly what we saw from him at Legion, from him at the Dubai show. I think the Dubai show is particularly relevant because that was a show where he beat a guy that a lot of us have been talking about this season, and that is Neckzilla. Neckzilla is significantly bigger than Tonio Burton. He beat him by 3 placings. Tonio was 3rd, Rubiel was 6th. So I think those are the reasons why Tonio's not as talked about right now. But like I said, I looked at this physique update, and he just looks fantastic. He's in great condition. He's definitely put on size. I've said this before, but I think he reminds me a little bit of a Dexter Jackson type of physique, or maybe even a smaller guy like maybe a Bonac or a Brandon Curry, for example. Not the biggest guys on stage, but very complete, very competitive. But I really think Dexter Jackson is probably the most apt comparison. There's not like a crazy freak factor to Tonio's physique, because we're talking about guys like, Goodvito. We're talking about guys like Nick Walker, Neckzilla. There's freak factor to these guys, and I think Tonio kind of gets lost in that shuffle. I think he will be top 10, even though I think this year's top 10 is going to look a lot different than it did back in 2023, where Tonio was 8th. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Tonio Burton at the 2025 Olympia, will he be able to beat his best Olympia placing so far, which was 8th in 2023? Now, next up in the news, I wanted to talk about Goodvito a little bit here, because I was looking at this post from Brazil Bodybuilding News, and I wouldn't have seen this, I wouldn't have realized this, I guess, if I didn't see them, because he posted, I guess, a series of Instagram stories Goodvito did, and they were in Portuguese. So, of course, this being a Brazilian page, they translated it, and apparently in these stories that Goodvito posted, he said he's already in the United States, so that's good. He got his visa, he's here, he's ready to compete at the Olympia. But he posted a series of stories saying that he's sick, and specifically, according to the translation, that he has a sore throat and he's on medication, which of course is not good. We're about 2.5 weeks out from the Olympia right now. So I think this kind of begs the question, is there a chance that Goodvito pulls out of the Olympia? Because I immediately think of the Pittsburgh Pro, where he had this lat injury, which, to be fair, it seems like in hindsight, the lat injury that he pulled out of the Pittsburgh Pro for, it seems like it was relatively minor. It doesn't seem like it was a big deal. I mean, nobody's talking about it now. We're just talking about how impressive, actually, his back lat spread was. It doesn't seem like it was something that really long-term impacted his physique, and he pulled out of the Pittsburgh show. Now, other than that, he doesn't really have a track record of pulling out of shows like, say, Neckzilla does. But I do kind of wonder if Goodvito posting these stories was maybe foreshadowing that maybe he's not going to look his best, or maybe to, just to taper people's expectations, because he is apparently sick at 2 weeks out from the show. Or maybe it's foreshadowing that, look, I haven't been feeling good for weeks. Then when the week of the Olympia comes and he doesn't show up, we understand why. Either way, I think him posting a series of stories talking about him being sick at weeks out from his Olympia debut is certainly not a good sign. But to be fair, even following this news that he's apparently sick, he did post a couple more stories today on his Instagram story where you can see what kind of condition he's in. And it certainly doesn't seem like the sore throat is impacting his condition. He's showing he's got a crazy Christmas tree. His abs are dialed in, his serratus, his obliques. He looks like he's in incredible shape, at least at this point. So hopefully whatever's wrong with him, hopefully it doesn't progress and impact his look even further. But right now, he still looks like, based on the updates that he's posted, assuming they're recent and actually from today, he's in really good shape still. But I guess my question to you guys is, do you think there's a chance that we see Goodvito pull out of the Olympia this year? I certainly hope not, because he's definitely one of the guys that I'm on the more excited end to see compete. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Now, next up in the news, this is another interesting one. So, who is the best bodybuilder? This Instagram page here. They put up this post yesterday stating that apparently Patrick Tor, who was coaching Stephane Matala, we've talked a lot about Stephane in the recent weeks. He's making his open bodybuilding debut at this weekend Tsunami Pro in France. So they put up this post yesterday saying that it's been confirmed now that Patrick Tor and Stephane Matala have split ways. And now I was looking at the comment section of that post, and Patrick Tor actually responded to a comment confirming that this is true and explaining why. So someone said, why would Patrick stop working with him, is the question, especially so close to the show. And Patrick responds and says, we have a very different view of what it means to be a disciplined professional with aspirations to win a pro show. Now, this really, I think, took away some of my excitement for this show, because I think a big thing that I've been excited to see is Stephane Matala's pro debut, or I'm sorry, open debut. And I think that them splitting this close to the show, because we hadn't seen, the last update that we saw from Stephane was 2 weeks out, and at that point he was still with Patrick Tor, because Patrick had reposted that update. So it was a very last minute them stopping working together, which is odd, but I think it really points to he's probably not going to be in shape. I don't know if this means he's cheating on his diet, he just doesn't look good, he's not following the protocol, he's just not listening to what Patrick is saying. But to me, I think this suggests that we're not going to see a very good version of Stephane, because even if Stephane was cheating on his diet or not following the protocol or whatever, if he looked amazing, I would think Patrick would probably still stay with him. Even if he was, disobeying a little bit or straying off course, if he looked amazing and he was going to have this amazing open debut, Patrick Tor could just stay with him, assuming that Patrick left him and not vice versa. But that's kind of what I gathered from Patrick's comment, is that maybe Patrick left him. But I would just think that if he was looking amazing, Patrick would have stayed with him, and then if he wins his open debut, it's a big thing that you can take some credit for as a coach. But to me, this points to he might not look that great. And it also makes me wonder, with the past 2 Olympias that Stephane had qualified for in classic physique and did not compete at either Olympia. I forget exactly what the reasoning was. I believe one of them was like he had a sick family member that he had to take care of or something. But it kind of makes me wonder, looking back to him missing both the Olympias that he qualified for, it kind of makes me wonder if there was more to that reasoning behind the scenes than, at least more than what we knew, I guess. So after seeing this, I've kind of prepared myself to expect that maybe he's probably not going to look the best and maybe not win his open debut. But I think that's kind of good for me, at least, because as a fan watching the show, I want to root for Quentin. I want Quentin to win the show, just straight up, me as a fan speaking. But I was also really excited for Stephane, and I kind of wanted Stephane to win the show too. Now, if I know, or at least I suspect, that he's not going to look good, he's not working with his coach last minute, now I'm kind of only rooting for Quentin as a fan. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. How do you think Stephane Matala is going to look at his open debut at the Tsunami Pro this weekend? Now, next up in the news, a new physique update from Keone Pearson at 2.5 weeks out from the Olympia, showing off the lower body. Very, very impressive. His quads look crazy, deep separations, deep cross striations in the quads. His glutes are starting to become striated, and I think for Keone, it seems like that's like the last part of him, at least from the physique updates that I've seen of him over the years. It seems like the glutes are like the last thing for him to really come in. They're like one of the final finishing touches on his physique, but his quads look absolutely crazy. And I've said this many times, but I'll say it again. I think Keone will continue to win the 212 Olympia title until he decides to leave. I think he's going to win this year. I think if he stays, he'll win next year. Keone, he's really coming to his own. He's figured out the formula, and this is his era. And I'm kind of thinking ahead here to Keone at the Prague show, where we know at least he's going to have to face Michael Krizo. And I was looking at these recent updates from Krizo, and these will be, I guess, 4.5, 5 weeks out from Prague. And Krizo looks gnarly, man. Krizo honestly looks great. He is, in my opinion, he's fully back from that shoulder injury. That's done. He's new. He's improved. He's back and bigger than ever. So for Keone, I like the fact that at the very least, he's going to have to go up against a mass monster open guy at the Prague show. So if he wins Prague, if Keone wins, he will at the very least have beaten Krizo. And even though Krizo isn't like one of the, top 3 guys in the world, he's much bigger than Keone. He's much taller than Keone. I'd argue he has more muscle mass pound for pound. He's a top 10 Olympian. So even if no other open guys that are like really big names do that show, if Keone beats him, I think that's just proof positive of how good Keone really is. So it's a nice challenge for him. And I'm sure, I have a feeling this lineup is going to shape up pretty nicely because I think it's 2 weeks after the Olympia. I think you'll have some open Olympians probably do that show. Like what we saw last year, Martin Fitzwater did it. You saw Sean Clarita do it, Chris Bumstead. So I certainly doubt that Krizo will be the only challenge for Keone, but I think it's a good challenge. And I think if Keone is able to beat him, it proves that Keone is that good regardless of size. It just proves how complete he is, how good his genetics are, how good his structure is. And I personally think he can, which I think is it sounds like a bold thing to say when you look at how crazy Krizo looks here, but I think Keone can beat him. And the final story that I've got for you guys today, the latest physique update from Derek Lunsford, his leg day today. His leg's looking really big in this update. I think it's interesting, though. I really do anticipate seeing Nick versus Derek on stage this year. I really like this rivalry. I think it's really good for the sport. And I really do think of all the divisions right now, it's the most exciting rivalry of open, of classic, of 212, of, maybe men's physique. I know there's some really hot drama in men's physique back and forth with those guys. I just don't follow it. I think Nick versus Derek is the most exciting thing that we've had in a while, though. And I don't know what it is, but even though Derek hasn't shown a lot in his updates, he's shown his legs for the past few updates. It doesn't strike me as super impressive. I know we're not seeing a lot, and I know it's hard to really form any type of opinion about what we're seeing here because it's really not much. But I haven't really seen Derek post anything from this prep that jumps out to me as crazy impressive like Nick has. But again, we got to be careful with that. I think a lot of us said the same thing going into the Arnold Classic. Derek's updates going into the Arnold just weren't that impressive. He didn't look that great during his Arnold prep in the updates that we were seeing. And I think that's the same thing that we're seeing here. So we've got to be careful because Derek came in, looked arguably the best he's ever looked, and beat reigning Mr. Olympia at the Arnold. So that's kind of proof there that sometimes physique updates aren't that telling. But in a lot of cases, they are. Like with Nick, for example, I have a very strong feeling that the updates that we're seeing from Nick suggest that we're going to see a really freaky version of Nick's physique. I really do believe that. He's just got this X factor. In those pictures that we talked about, he's crazy looking. And I just don't feel like I get that same vibe from the stuff that we see from Derek. Nick just has that intangible freak factor. And by intangible, I mean you can't really just point to one thing about Nick's physique that makes him freaky. It's not like Derek, for example. You could say that Derek's back is freaky. That's like a tangible factor. With Nick, it's just like the whole his physique in its entirety. There's just a freak factor to his look that I don't think other guys have. So that's what I mean when I say intangible. But Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who's coming out on top at the Olympia this year? Nick Walker or Derek Lunsford? And that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you haven't already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power, my Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power, my secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.